Can they have pressure? Absolutely. Will they be successful? Probably not. And newsflash to some, politicians are kind of selfish like that. They want the information for themselves, and they want to keep part of that information from you and I. Why? Control. Those are all elements to this conversation that a lot of people, I don't think, banter about as much as they should. I don't think politicians are the answer. I don't pretend to know what the answer is. I just don't have as high of hopes as some people do. Even though you have politicians on these committees getting the classified briefings and maybe getting motivated enough to create that legislation, they are not there in perpetuity. They are not there forever. They change. They'll retire. They get voted out. That's why I don't think politicians are going to be that ultimate answer. There's a lot of things at play here. I think society creates the dream scenario, but it's not necessarily reality. I don't believe disclosure in the sense that we all talk about it is going to happen. I don't see the government coming to some kind of podium. President comes out in front of the White House and says, the extraterrestrial presence is here. They're real. We know about this. That's how most people define disclosure. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think disclosure is going to be with us, that we're going to be able to figure out those answers for ourselves. For some, that threshold is a lot higher or lower, depending on who you talk to, for them to really come to the conclusion, hey, there is an extraterrestrial presence here. For me, that's what it's all about. Bring it all together for yourself, analyze it for yourself, and come to a conclusion. I don't need the government to tell me what I believe. I don't need a researcher to write me a book and tell me what to believe. I don't need anybody who runs a site called the Black Vault to tell me what to believe, because I don't want to be that person to tell people what to believe. I think we should all just look at all those pieces of the puzzle and try and figure it out. And for me, that's what disclosure ultimately is. What is it? Is it extraterrestrials? Is it aliens? What everybody wants to know? I don't know, because my threshold's really high to say that. Everybody thinks the government is this all-knowing entity, that they have the answers, and they're just the big, bad, evil guys that are keeping it from us. There is a partial belief that I have that they just have zero answers, that they truly are clueless, that they have no idea, just like kind of some of us, where we're just trying to figure all this out. I think that's a possibility too, that the government doesn't have all the answers. I mean, you can't in one breath say they're completely inept and can't do X, Y, and Z, and then in the next breath say they are holding the biggest secret of humanity and they've been able to cover it up and any ample, undeniable scientific proof that extraterrestrials are here, and it's all because the United States government has done that. Does the government know more than what they're telling? Absolutely. That's undeniable. We can see that with the secrecy and the redactions and the denied documents and videos and photographs. But does that denial constitute answers? That I don't know. But I would have my doubts that they do. I think that they may be trying to figure it out just as much as some of us.
My name is Ryan Graves, former F-18 pilot.
Ryan Graves, former Navy fighter pilot and engineer, got a sense of deja vu when he saw the UAP videos released in 2017.
Well, if there's look at this thing.
He recognized the voices. He'd already seen this video before, during a classified briefing aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt. In 2014, they upgraded all their radar systems.
Once we had upgraded our radar to the newest version, we were seeing things that just weren't there on the other radar. We would go out in the morning with one aircraft with one radar and not see anything. And then we'd get an upgraded radar on our next flight, and then we'd see a lot of these objects. We actually didn't even think it was anything. We thought it was a radar malfunction of some type, until we got close enough with some of the cameras we have on board to see that they were physical objects.
During an air-to-air training mission, as pilots were returning to the aircraft carrier, they noticed on radar an object that looked to be a disc or gimbal shape, with 5 other objects flying in formation nearby it.
There was energy emitting from those spots. This was now potentially some kind of drone or junk or something. Once we got them on the FLIR, which is our camera system, we'd want to fly by to see them with our eyes, but we couldn't see them. If our radar is looking at something, everything is looking there, and all that information is pumped into my visor on my helmet. As I'm flying right at this object, there's a square in my visor showing me where to look. Look there, look there. I can see my wingmen and the circles on them. But for these particular objects, we'd come by them and there would be nothing in the square. We couldn't see them. An F-18's radar system isn't the best tool to help us figure out what these are. There's a refresh rate. If something was to accelerate so fast that it just darts off on the radar, that might not look like a super fast acceleration. That might just look like something disappearing off my radar. One of the days we were going out on a flight together, two of the aircraft, two people in each aircraft, and just a standard day going out to do some training out in the working areas. We enter the working areas at a very specific location at a very specific altitude. And as aircraft are departing, they essentially depart lower at the exact same spot. That's kind of the entry and exit point, they call it. They were flying through that point, and right at the point, they flew right by one of these objects. Went right between the lead aircraft and his wingman. This object went right between them, flew through it, almost hit the thing. To my knowledge, this is the first visual of the object. They ended up knocking off the flight after that, essentially canceling the flight. He came back, he had a look of shock on his face. I almost hit one of those damn things. You know, I was like, well, what did it look like? He was like, it was a dark black cube inside a clear sphere. The corners of the cube were essentially touching the inside of that sphere. No gas, no propulsion, no propellers. We shouldn't have objects operating near our fighter jets that we don't know what they are. That's a serious issue. The fact that one of these could take out our aircraft and the crew with it is a major safety issue. United States security perspective, it's a major lapse to just assume that this is something that's not going to be a problem. As time progressed, more people saw them. I know at least 10 or so that saw the objects themselves and described it the same way. It kind of broke our brain. That's what we do with things that are strange. We try to make it not strange anymore by relating it to something else. Laying in bed at the end of the day, that lingering question, that kind of uncertainty. For a while, that's where it sat for me until I left on deployment to Mississippi, where I was a flight instructor. It gave me more time to kind of think and reflect on it, and that's when I realized I felt the need to talk about it.
New release video shows an encounter between U.S. Navy pilots and some kind of unidentified flying object.
It wasn't an overly hard choice. We've been stigmatized around this topic. I hate to use this word, but programmed in a sense with certain assumptions about what ET is through our media and our culture and all those things, right? We like that. It's something that fascinates us as human beings to think that there's something else out there. And so we've built up stories about it, but those stories have been created with our own imaginations. I had some assumptions that I didn't realize were so fundamentally baked into my core, right? Being able to examine those assumptions in a logical way helped me understand that there's actually a lot of meat on this bone. We are truly perhaps talking about something alien, and that word I think has more depth to it than we commonly think it does. If something is truly alien, it might be very difficult for us to really imagine its makeup. We have to assume if there's hyper-intelligent aliens out there, that there's a lot of knowledge that we don't have, right? That we're just at the very beginning of our scientific understanding, if that's true. If that logic is true, then almost by definition, anything we're going to see is almost magical. beyond our comprehension and understanding because we just simply haven't connected those dots yet, and that is understanding. When you look at the behavior overall, there's no consideration for energy here. To have something that can go as fast as a jet and then go as slow as a helicopter, to do those things back and forth, it takes an incredible amount of energy. But when we would look at these objects on the FLIR, it just looked like a single source of IR energy coming out from the objects. No propellers, there's no heat, there's no plume of gas keeping it in place.
When a Navy fighter pilot says they saw something unexplained in the sky, with no signs of propulsion, and openly claims that the technology is not from anything we have here on Earth, it's hard not to listen, and to actually believe their story.
One of the things that I'm doing within my work at the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics is building a state of technology manual, if you will, for UAP sensing. Something that would be updated yearly that we could put out to help inform the engineering community on different methodologies that have been tested and what works and what doesn't. Really looking to move the engineering conversation forward. This is the beginning of a scientific peer review process that's going to allow a standardized and repeatable way of discovery, where we can have experts come in from across the aerospace scientific regime and provide peer review to papers that get published and, no kidding, move the science forward. You can see how artificial intelligence is moving itself into science more. It would make sense to utilize machine learning to perhaps understand certain areas or functions that maybe aren't obvious to our understanding of science. I think that we will radically have redefined how we think about intelligence. We're going to share this Earth, in a sense, with another non-human intelligence. We have to really leverage our interaction with AI to be competitive and successful. That's going to be an interesting change. I think the concept and our understanding of consciousness and intelligence will be much greater in 50 years.